Imagine walking down the Ped Mall, the cobblestones, the bricks, the tidy concrete boxes that corral trees and plants, the spongy synthetic floor at the playground that separates children from a spill on the ground. Not far off is the asphalt that covers our streets, or even the grass across the Pentecrest. You stop for a moment, look down, and you realize you're walking on soil, even if it's shrouded in concrete. There, in a crack the size of a tablespoon, 6 million tiny organisms are at work in the soil, buffering against drought and flood, disarming toxins and pollutants, and most importantly, capturing carbon in a cake-like texture. They're part of a vast network of roots and organisms that need the soil to survive, and allow us to survive. As the foundation of our iconic cornfields and Grant Wood's American Gothic, you could say soil defines our state. And yet, as Iowa Poet Laureate Mary Swander once noted, Iowa is the most altered landscape in the United States. Over 99% of our native prairie is gone, and in the process, certain commercial farming practices and our urban ways are jeopardizing our greatest natural resource, the soil. According to journalist Kristen Olson, the world's soils have lost up to 80 billion tons of carbon, and even now, land misuse accounts for 30% of the carbon emissions entering the atmosphere. No one understands that better than Iowan farmers on the front lines of drought and flood. A recent report by Bloomberg's Risky Business Project found that climate change would hit Iowa's economy the hardest among Midwestern states because of reduced crop yields. And therein lies our great green hope, says Olson. The soil will save us in our new age of climate change. To be sure, Olson traveled across the country and world to talk to climate experts who all agreed we need to extract excess carbon from the atmosphere by working with photosynthesis instead of against it. Farmers, ranchers, land managers, city planners, and even people with backyards have to make sure plants are growing vigorously without large stretches of bare earth. Photosynthesis can't happen on bare earth. We have to take care of the billions of microbes and fungi that interact with the plant's roots and turn carbon sugars into carbon-rich humus. Who are our soil activists in Iowa City? Our soil pioneers? Our soil mates carrying out this work? Meet Scott Koepke. Raised in Cedar Rapids, where his love for music included a role as Curly in the musical Oklahoma, Scott's passion for soil and gardening emerged from his 2-year stint in the Peace Corps in Senegal, where he taught villagers sustainable farming techniques as well as methods for procuring clean drinking water. Scott then spent about a decade in California before returning to Iowa in 1995. His passion for local food and gardening eventually landed him a job with New Pioneer Co-op. He started in the grocery department, but worked his way up to establish and manage the Soil Mates program. New Pie General Manager Matt Hartz said Scott has been passionate about the Soil Mates program before it was part of his job duties.
Well, in 2009, our board met to set a strategic plan for the co-op, mapping out the future for us. Part of that plan was expanding our education and outreach efforts. Scott, at that time, was working for us in the grocery department of our Iowa City location, and he, on his own, had already created the Soil Mates program, which he was doing in his spare time just because he's so passionate about it. And looking at the programming that he was doing and the kind of programming that the board had expressed an interest in investing in, it was just a natural fit to move him from grocery into our marketing and outreach department and leverage the program full time.
Soil Mates is an organic garden education service for children of all ages, and each year Scott travels to dozens of schools in Iowa City and Cedar Rapids. The program provides $500 grants for 20 different schools to start students' gardens each year. Scott has also worked with these schools to establish cafeteria composting programs. But can one person really change a community? Can one person plant the seeds for a program that takes root in others?
Well, the program has been tremendous. We've been doing it for about 5 years now. We've received so much positive feedback and thank yous and letters. Scott is all over. We interact with thousands of school kids every year here and in the county surrounding us. We support over 20 community gardens each year. And Scott, he is just amazing. He's a great educator. He doesn't do anything that is not, all heart, all the way. He brings so much passion and love to what he does. And so it's been a great, way for us to interact with our community and to interact with the school district.
Scott is able to engage a wide range of young people, from toddlers to high schoolers. He is a regular presenter for story times at the Iowa City Public Library, where he makes his presentations as interactive as possible as a way to both engage and teach students.
And remember, when we first came in here, we talked about, every time I talk to you guys, I want us all to remember the 4 things that those seeds needed outside that we had to have in order for them to grow into big pieces of sweet corn like this. Remember, the first one is, I'm going to point up to the sky, and you tell me what's up above shining. Sun! Sun! The second one starts with an S too, and it's my favorite word in the whole world. It's soil. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, you bless my heart. Sun, soil, and there's 2 more. I'm gonna give you a big hint. The third one is, what did I just, air. And then the last one is water. Yeah, so if we have all 4 of those things, those little seeds grow into these big things here.
Scott presents at the Iowa City Public Library about 5 or 6 times each year, including his Children's Day presentation every spring. This provides kids with an opportunity to plant crops and other vegetables in the garden beds outside the library. It was Scott's idea to include these green spaces during the pedestrian mall redesign about 10 years ago, and he has asked the city to include even more area for gardening as plans for another Ped Mall redesign are currently being drawn up. Casey Lambert, Children's Services Assistant at the Iowa City Public Library, said Scott is particularly effective at engaging children by explaining their role on Earth, and she thinks this has had a lasting impact on those who have seen Scott present.
I think Scott has made a huge impact on kids. I mean, I can't even remember how long he's been doing this. I think at least 5 years, longer than I've been here. And since I started, I've seen kids get really engaged with both gardening and just their role in the earth and on the planet as well. And that's something that Scott really does well. He talks to kids about their role on the planet and who they are on this planet and what our job is in terms of keeping it safe for future generations. And I think engaging kids in that thought process really early on means that they're conscientious of that from a very young age.
It's Scott's hope that by engaging these kids at a young age, they will already be familiar with soil and sustainable gardening by the time they get to elementary school. Grant Wood Elementary on the southeast side of Iowa City is one of the schools Scott regularly visits. Jared DeRoy is the site coordinator for the before and after school program at Grant Wood, and he too has noticed Scott's enthusiasm and excitement when presenting.
I feel like when kids interact with Scott, they're always really excited, and I think that stems from Scott being really excited about what he's doing. I feel like in any kind of educational setting, if you have somebody who is really motivated about what they're doing, really passionate, and they have a good way of relaying that to other people, it's really infectious. And I think Scott captures that every single time he's out in the garden with kids.
Jared said gardening not only serves as a learning opportunity for students, but it also allows them to see a project through from start to finish, which can be engaging, especially when they are able to eat the vegetables they spent so much time and effort nurturing.
A lot of times the kids will eat it in program or they'll cook with it. We have a cooking program also, and so it's great to see the kids take things that they've grown all year, cook it, and have the final product there. But yeah, not very much of it gets wasted. The kids are usually very, very enthusiastic about eating the things they've grown, and one of the coolest things to see is to see kids try foods they wouldn't try if you just served it to them at lunch. But if they spent all summer nurturing it from the time it was a seed up until it's a full-grown plant, they're in. The buy-in's there.
Whenever Scott comes to present, I notice that the students are always very engaged. He's a very enthusiastic presenter. And I feel like after he leaves, they talk about him a lot. They want to learn more about composting. They want to compost at home. And I think he really lights a fire in them about soil and about composting. And he's just a really engaging guy. And I think that the kids really get into that.
As the popular ballad goes, row by row, inch by inch, I'm going to make my garden grow. But not without some issues, from the weather to institutional regulations to sheer indifference.
I think the biggest challenge in the children's garden has been public awareness of what it does, and who it's for. Some eating of the vegetables that happens overnight, but people don't necessarily realize that it's going to table and it's going to be donated. And there have been some problems with, vomiting and things like that. General destruction of children's garden property, but over time and as awareness is raised, it's becoming less and less of an issue.
At Grant Wood Elementary, such gardening issues have brought together the kids, parents, and school officials to figure out a solution.
I would say some of the biggest challenges we've had to face along the way are things actually with the natural environment around the garden. And so last year there were a lot of gnats and bugs in the garden and mosquitoes, and the kids really hated that. And so we let them come up with a solution for that problem. And their solution was really kind of like funny and different, but it was inventive. And I can't say it worked, but it was really cool. They decided they would plant a bunch of Venus flytraps and other carnivorous plants to try to eat all of the bugs in the garden.
Longfellow students also came up with solutions for the challenges they face.
A lot of what we do to overcome the challenges is we let the kids brainstorm ideas. We talk to other people who are gardeners. I had a parent who helped us out a little bit who was a master gardener and gave us a lot of advice. And so we've used our resources just to kind of find little fixes for things, what's going to grow best, how to keep things watered, how to get people to come in and how to increase involvement.
Poet Wendell Berry once wrote, "Odd as I am sure it will appear to some, I can think of no better form of personal involvement in the cure of the environment than that of gardening. A person who is growing a garden, if he is growing it organically, is improving a piece of the world. He is producing something to eat, which makes him somewhat independent of the grocery business, but he is also enlarging, for himself, the meaning of food and the pleasure of eating." As the poet laureate of soil for Iowa City, Scott Koepke enlarged the meaning of food and soil. Longfellow 6th grader Lucy Jansen has been working with her school's garden ever since her mom and a group of parents got the garden established about 5 years ago. Lucy said that Scott's presentation on composting has been particularly helpful for her to see how humans can lessen their impact on the environment.
I just think he's said that it's very important to make compost and to help the environment and stuff, and I think that's really helpful for me to just know that the environment is important, that we should help the environment with compost and stuff.
I know that I've had students in the past that after Scott's presentations, they've gone home and asked their parents to start composting, and I feel like it always gets them a little bit more excited about the garden after he talks to them, and I think that he kind of helps ignite in them a little bit more of that passion for getting outside and gardening and kind of being a little bit more environmentally conscious.
Scott has taken such a consciousness beyond the garden rows. In 2012, Scott testified as part of the Monsanto hearings in Iowa City on the impact the Monsanto Corporation has had on food, farms, communities, and ecosystems.
Some more evidence I'd like to just suggest that organic methods and organic practices actually build that organic matter in the soil. When we build that organic matter, we are enabling the conditions for a more robust microbial profile. Because, again, I'm sorry I get a little emotional talking about this stuff. These microbes and worms, they need some representation too. Pesticide, ladies and gentlemen, is homicide. And as my grandmother Helen taught me the best pesticide is healthy soil. Thank you.
So, can the soil save us, as journalist Kristen Olson asks? Is the soil the great connector of lives, as Wendell Berry writes? President Roosevelt admonished, "The nation that destroys its soil destroys itself." And this is especially true in an age of climate change.
Food so good, too good to waste. Prevent or compost, now that's our taste. Use it up, make it do without. Buy only what you need, that's what we're about. Follow our strategies and do your part. We know there is love for the earth in your heart. Help out Mother Earth and your pocketbook too. With all these gains, we got work to do. Together we can do it, together we'll pursue. Let's reduce some methane and save some green too. Love your mother.
Teach me the secret of your stalks, Iowa Poet Laureate Mary Swander wrote in her collection, Heaven and Earth House. The secrets of the soil Scott has taught to students, young and old, transcend the schoolyards and public spaces in ways beyond his imagination, even into the next generation.
One thing I really like about Scott is that he's extremely motivated to get gardens in our schools. He wants to see kids interacting with soil, with compost, with the growing process, and with the product, with the foods that they can grow. He's very passionate about sustainability, and I guess Scott doesn't want to see the youth of today grow up not knowing where their food comes from. And so all of his effort that he puts toward school gardens and puts toward the youth that come to those school gardens is very much needed and very, very important.
Now let's eat your food, reduce waste at the source. When food waste happens, join the compost force. It's food for the food, cause the plants that feed you, they need to eat too. It's a cycle, yo, a food recycling move. Small acts can make big change. What are you waiting for? You can start today. Soil, plants, food, us. Love your mother. Love your mother. Keep food for the bellies and out of the trash. Help out the environment and save some cash. Love your mother. Love your mother. 15% of our landfill is food. That's tons of food wasted to the earth. That's just rude. Knowing is power, so together let's learn. Hand in hand, we as citizens unite. We are brothers and sisters. We share in this fight to build awareness, make real change, save our food and the future we await. Just like a seed, our knowledge will grow. Change our view of food for a better tomorrow. Let's take that percent from 15 to 0. Live out sustainability. You are the hero. For Mother Earth, y'all. For Mother Earth, y'all. Love your mother. For Mother Earth, y'all. For Mother Earth, y'all. Love your mother. Be kind to your mama.